All right, good morning and welcome to NVC's Fall 2020 Plan Town Hall. Next, I'd like to welcome everyone. I know that we have a very informative session today. The vice presidents will be addressing their areas, as well as our coordinator of risk management, Garvin Dansby, will also be commenting as well. And then we will open up for questions near the end. Next slide. I want to give you a little bit of an overview of the incident command planning and decisions, because literally thousands of hours of woman and man hours have been put in to the plans, both at the college level, at the district level. And so I want to give you a little bit of an idea. And it starts off with the incident command, which is headed up by the chancellor. There are 13 members, 2 presidents, of which I am one at this point. We serve about a 4-month period, 2 months as the co-chief, and then 2 months as the chief of the incident command. And so that is at the top. It's a decision-making group. It's one that collects all of the information from the COVID-19 Return to Campus Task Force, which has 50 members from across the colleges, all the vice presidents, the risk coordinators, director of strategic initiatives, lots of folks that provide input into the process. What happens is questions come up. Decisions have to be made. Those are then transmitted to the incident command, and then decisions are made at that point. Throughout the week, these folks are meeting to develop plans and to alleviate issues along the way. Next. I want to give you a little bit of an overview of the recovery incident command levels. There are 5 of which, and then the overall guiding principles of which we're following. Let's start off with the next slide. Just to kind of give you an idea, this is our incident command levels. Level 5 was that stay home, work safe. Began training employees and students for level 4. About 1 to 5% of essential Department of Public Safety, IT, and facilities personnel actually on site. Right now, we're kind of at that beginning stage of the level 4, where there are on-site CTE workforce courses. Those aren't on our campus right now, but at some of the other colleges, they are, as well as some selected arts and science laboratory courses. At this point, we are looking at up to 10%, bringing back up to 10% of essential DPS, IT, facilities personnel, CTE support personnel, as well. But the CTE courses that we have do not have external accrediting bodies that require face-to-face, and so we are not bringing those folks back at this juncture. Next. The next level would be level 3, where it would be locally declared all clear. We would implement, monitor, and adjust up to 25% on site. This is a very fluid process, and these levels are very fluid. So if something changes, we can adjust that up or adjust that down. It doesn't go one direction, is what I'm trying to get. Level 2 is also declared all clear, and that's when we start monitoring and adjusting up to the 50% level back on campus. And next slide, of course, and then level 1 is where we would come back at 100% of our students and student body on campus, as well as our faculty and staff. And that is if it was declared locally all clear, and that is one of those that we would have to monitor extremely closely. Next slide. Our overall guiding principles, of which there are 7, the very first one is the most important one, and that's our key consideration for decision making, is the safety for our students as well as our employees. Number 2, we have to keep in mind that student success and completion remain our key priorities as a college. Number 3, the criteria and risk associated with each level is identified to inform leadership of a decision point to initiate a different phase. But as I mentioned earlier, those phases can be very fluid if something occurs. Number 4, all personal protective equipment needed on site will be provided. All technology needs to continue to learn and work remotely will be provided. Number 6, these principles will guide the activities and tasks that are implemented at each of the colleges as well as the district offices. And these guidelines will take into account all of the sub-teams, tutoring, CTE workforce programs, as well as personal protection equipment. Next slide. I did want to make some comments on the work remote request. That came out a couple of weeks ago, and it's been quite a buzz. I wanted to tell you kind of the process. All of those are going into HR, and they're doing the assessments. One thing that you'll find out is it's not just a yes or no. It may be a cancel. And the reason why your request might be canceled, if you're in a position that there's no intent to bring you back on campus during the fall, we don't want that to slow down the process of HR on processing those that might be in one of those roles. That doesn't mean that if it's canceled, that if things change along the way, that you can't reapply. We're just right now wanting to make sure that we're processing all of those applications that are really vital at this juncture. Next slide. At this time, I'm going to introduce Erin Sherman, Vice President for College Services.
Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. Next slide. I'm going to talk to you about some of the overarching plan, guidelines, and processes that we have in place. And I'm not going to get too far into the weeds, but certainly if you have questions at the end, please let us know. Those of us that are face-to-face with this every day sometimes take for granted that we know the ins and outs because we're so involved in the development. So please let me know if something is unclear, and you can certainly, after this is over, ask questions and we will address them through La Revista and other formats. Next slide. So as a Northwest Vista family, these are just a few of the components of our return to work plan. And what's interesting about all these various tools and procedures and physical space modifications is that they all link together in one way or another. So I'm not certainly going to talk through all of them. We don't have several hours this morning, but I am going to hit on a few key items. Next slide. So one of the most critical components of ensuring that we have the ability to keep safety at our forefront is NVC together, and understanding that each one of us plays an absolute key vital role in maintaining health and safety for ourselves and all those within our NVC family. One of those is to be sure you follow CDC recommendations to reduce your exposure. No matter what steps we take on site, it is really the activities off site that really determine what is occurring on site. You will notice we'll talk a little bit further about health screening, the self-assessment before you come on site to ensure that if you've been exposed or if you are exhibiting any symptoms of COVID-19, not to come on site. Then once you are on site, you will be participating in an in-person screening and temperature check. And Garvin's going to show you a video of how that's occurring. Right now we are piloting the process and making sure everything's ready to go while we are working with student success on packing up CCC. Face coverings, as you're all aware, we have the procedure that has been released about face coverings and maintaining social distancing on site. And then one of the absolute critical pieces is exposure and case incident reporting. And this is done whether you are on site or off site, because it triggers either services and follow-up if you are off site, and if you're on site, it triggers follow-up, disinfecting, close contact tracing, a whole lot of other components. Make sure that you report immediately. And if you are a supervisor or a faculty member and a student reports to you that they've been exposed or tested positive, if the student or employee has not filled out that case incident and let us know, please make sure that you do on their behalf. As I said, the most critical is letting us know immediately. When we receive reports days later, it puts us behind the curve. Follow-up and response. One of the issues that we are having is that when we do have an exposure or a case and we don't have full information, as we all do, we don't answer phone numbers that we don't recognize. And so make sure that if you have reported an exposure or case, to answer your phone. It is probably one of our risk management individuals getting a hold of you to follow up and obtain more information or provide guidance. Make sure you do not come to campus and that your reporting is as complete as possible. We all are going to have a personal responsibility when we come back to campus in disinfecting our workspaces. You're going to be provided with EPA approved disinfecting to make sure that you are disinfecting your space, high-touch spaces. Housekeeping schedule has been beefed up, and processes are in place for treating COVID-19 with specific disinfectings. However, they can't be everywhere all the time, so we will all have a personal responsibility in maintaining our spaces as well. Another key component is the access process. And as we bring people back more on site, this is going to become more critical. It is probably one of the more complex processes that impacts everything that occurs on site. And our fall processes will include access requests and tracking for employees working on site, remote employee requests for one-time access, vendors on site, community members that may be accessing the campus, which would be limited, and then any external facilities use, which will be incredibly limited since we don't have events on campus, but things like early voting that we hosted earlier this summer. Make sure that you keep up to date on the remote work toolboxes and the communication that is released, and then please be ensured that you complete all training that is sent out, including the infectious disease training. And most importantly is flexibility. As we all know, this changes on an ongoing basis, and so making sure that we all maintain that flexibility and understanding that as appropriate, things will change as the situation changes, as the cases in Bexar County change, as CDC guidance changes. So I know that if you're like me, you are trying to become a little more comfortable with that flexibility and knowing that what is done today may need to change tomorrow. Next slide. These are just a few of the processes that have been developed and are in place for addressing COVID-19, both on campus and off campus, as well as maintaining that safe environment. As I mentioned, there's that incident reporting process that is officially conducted through the COVID-19 incident report. Right now, unfortunately, this is a manual email-based process. We are looking and developing some test procedures that are going to make this a more automatic routing procedure. It'll have a link where you can complete that report. But right now, unfortunately, it's manual. So if you have an exposure or an incident, please contact Garvin and he can get that report to you. But what's even more critical is we know that at some point that incident report is going to have to be filled out. But as we've learned while we've been remote and recently, most of the reports of exposures and cases, positive cases, are going to occur after hours. So finding someone that can contact either Garvin or myself and let us know immediately as quickly as possible is critical. One of the recent incidents we had, for instance, is 9 o'clock at night. I get a call that says, hey, we have an exposure. This person has a family member that has tested positive and they've been on site. So immediately that triggers a call to Bernice or Tucci, our superintendent, to start the housekeeping and to quarantine the space. That contacts DPS to let them know not to go into the area. Garvin's working on the incident reporting side, and we are already working on contacting individuals that we know have been in contact so that we can tell them to quarantine as well. So even though that incident report is what triggers a lot of the official processes, make sure that you get a hold of one of us, and if nothing else, your vice president certainly knows how to get a hold of us on a moment's notice. We also have the close contact identification, which comes as a result of that incident report, which triggers. The important thing to know is that if you have been in contact with somebody that is exposed or has a positive case, you are going to be contacted by a member of risk management. The individual who is the reporting party is going to go through a process where they identify the close contact individuals, and you are going to be asked to quarantine as well. As I said, the flexibility, CDC guidelines change on this, so we modify our procedures as the CDC guidelines change. The on-site health screening process, as I mentioned, Garvin will be going through that a little more in detail, and a wristband is going to be provided daily to let everyone know that you have been through that screening process. As I mentioned, the campus access process, this is also one that right now is an email-based manual process that we learned very quickly is not working the best. The routing takes quite a while, and so we are developing processes right now to make that a click a link, fill out a form that automatically routes. Familiarize yourself with the district use of face coverings and social distancing. That procedure is in effect right now. Also, building and room occupancy levels, we are following life safety guidelines for both labs and classrooms, and then offices and other spaces to make sure that we can maintain that 6-foot social distancing. The PPE process is ongoing. We are very blessed to have Garvin Dansby with us, who saw this coming and has been working on the NBC side to obtain PPE before we get the large district shipments. He began in February. And so we were able to have PPE on site at NBC throughout the summer, and for partner departments like ACPD, which did not have access because PPE was purchased so quickly around the country that it wasn't available. So please be secured to know that a lot of the access procedures and what we do on site is also guided by the availability and the supply we have on hand of PPE. And as you can imagine, still the hardest to obtain is disinfecting wipes. But we are confident that we have enough on site for that minimal opening that we will have this fall. Next slide. Just want to make sure that you have links to the resources that are available to support the remote environment, the student technology request, employee technology requests, the IT help desk line. We still have plenty of technology available, so if you have students that are in need or employees that are in need, please share those links. And if you have any technical difficulties, please contact the NBC IT help desk. The access and schedule management, as I mentioned, is in process. And as we further develop these, the links will be shared widely so that you're aware of it. And we want to make sure everything we do is a dynamic link so that you're not downloading something and have older versions of items that you may need. You also see there the NBC student, faculty, and staff remote learning pages that have several resources that you need. Next slide. So I wanted to walk through some of the changes that you will see on campus when you do return. We have lots of physical space modifications that have occurred. Garvin and his support team have been walking every building, analyzing every space to determine what type of physical modification is needed. This is just a sample of the signage that you'll see on site that will help us maintain that social distancing and reminders of the safety guidelines in place that will help keep the safety at the forefront. Another physical space modification, and if we could all just unmute and give a little shout for a moment. It took a pandemic, but we right now are having paper towel dispensers reinstalled in our restrooms.
Hooray!
Hallelujah.
Thank
It took a
God.
pandemic, but they're back.
Yes.
Give us the paper towels. Give us the paper towels.
Yes. The other thing you will see is lots of additional touchless hand sanitizers installed. Dining operations are closed. Vending machines are not in use. And you will see some other shared spaces that are not in use that will have things marked out like seat closures, the collaborative furniture in certain spaces, notifications in elevators of how many people should be in the elevators. So I would guess Garvin had a list of probably 50 considerations for every single space as he walked through, at least. Next slide. One of the other modifications that you will see, and these are the mock-ups when we were reviewing the different options, but you will see plexiglass that is being brought in a lot of the front-facing areas to just divide chairs and seating areas, desks, it will be in several areas throughout campus that you will see as you come back. One of the important things to note is as we increase in those levels and go back and forth, as Dr. Baser mentioned, the physical space modifications will continue. So right now we're focusing on the buildings that will be open in the fall, and then in the fall we will prepare for the plan to bring back more in the spring. And so we keep saying plexiglass is kind of like toilet paper. You can't get it real easily right now. So we are streamlining our processes and making sure we have it in the most critical need spaces right now. All right, next slide. I cannot say enough about how blessed Northwest Vista is to have Garvin Dansby as our coordinator of risk management. He has been living at NVC. I joke yesterday, he showed us a cot in his office, but he has been amazing, and he is blessed to be supported by Paulina Benecourt, who is his admin assistant, and Ray Cardenas, our college events coordinator, has jumped on board to support risk management during this time. So I have the privilege to turn it over to Garvin Dansby, friend, colleague, and amazing risk manager.
Good morning, NVC. Next slide, please.
Garvin!
Well, we've been doing health screenings, as you know, but I want to give you a current situation report. Basically, in the Alamo College District, we had 95 total cases since March. And of those 95, 47 are positive. So we're still in the recovery phase on how we can beat this COVID-19 virus. And one of the ways we're going to do it is health screening. So as you can see in the video here that they're going to play for you, just a brief sampling of how the health screening goes. So when you come into the building, we ask that you wear a mask. Play the video, please. Wear a mask. And if you don't have a mask, we'll also provide masks for you. If you can't wear a mask, we have face shields and we have goggles also. We have gloves, and we're going to ask you a series of questions. We're going to sanitize your hands because we do not want to get the space infected. So we make sure that you sanitize your hands, you wash your hands. So whatever you're doing, continue doing it by wearing your mask, hand washing, social distancing, disinfecting, and then reporting your positive cases. You could contact me 24/7. I'm up always waiting for something to come in. So feel free to reach out and give me a call. Everybody has my phone number, so I don't mind at all. Next slide, please. Also, we're going to be evolving into this temperature check stations we're ordering. It should be here within the next couple of weeks, where you'll come into the kiosk, and the kiosk will take your temperature and give you a wristband. But we're doing it manually, but eventually we're going to go let technology take over. Next slide, please. Well, since you know me, I always prepare, respond, and recover. We're still in the recovery phase of COVID, but I don't want you to forget about the other threats that we're faced. So as you know, you heard on the news that flu season is coming up. We want you to be prepared for flu season by getting your shots, getting your tissue right now, because there's going to be a premium when the time comes for flu season and trying to fight the flu, to make sure that you're prepared. Also, you've seen last week where Hurricane Hannah was coming our direction. Believe me, I was looking out for you, making sure that it doesn't come towards our way. If we were being prepared. But look out for hurricane season, because hurricane season will run into November. So stay safe, be prepared, and we'll recover from COVID-19 as soon as possible. I want to turn the baton over to our Vice President of Student Success, Debbie Gatan. Debbie?
Garvin, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I am privileged to follow behind Garvin and have been sharing with colleagues across Alamo and with our Student Success family that I feel so privileged and honored to have Garvin watching over us and taking care of the risk management of our college and our safety and our protection. We love you, Garvin, and being blessed to have you in that role is the best words I can come up with, because I don't think we have words to thank you enough. Dr. Baser and Aaron, thank you as well for your presentation. Aaron, the work that you have been doing in your team, the long days and the long nights to make sure that the college, our students, and our team are safe and protected. It's just appreciated so much. And Daniel coming behind me, the work that the faculty have been doing to think about and prepare for not only how to close the spring, but conduct our teaching and learning for the summer and in preparations for the fall. We're just indebted to you greatly. And to the Student Success family, thank you so much for your flexibility and your agility. You are always on the front lines, and you have stayed on the front lines even in the midst of a pandemic, and our results just look phenomenal, and cannot thank y'all enough for the work that you're doing. Everybody is where they need to be. You're all at Vista, and this is the family and the team that has stood up and against a worldwide pandemic and is surviving in the midst of some sadness in our families, as well as some celebrations. And you're on my heart and on my mind every day. Next slide. Want to share with the college family the plan for student success as we enter into the fall. We are in between buildings right now as we are conducting the process of packing and moving out of Cypress, and the anticipation of Desert Willow Welcome Center opening in September. We will be providing limited, extremely limited services in the fall. It's primarily in two areas that we feel are necessary because we're making the decision based on a necessity, and that is to provide limited services on Mondays and on Thursdays from 8 to 5 for students that are testing, completing their TSI and their testing requirements, and they don't have the technology to be able to complete that at a distance. And we're providing an onboarding support lab also for our new students that they haven't reached that point where we can get them the laptop and the hotspots. We want them to have a place that they can come in case they don't have the technology. And then as quickly as possible, we will get them the technology so that they have that gap closed. It'll be by appointment only, so we will know who's coming in advance. And then we will go live with that plan whenever we are able to move into Desert Willow. Next slide. This week has been the Packing Palooza in Cypress, the 27th through the 31st. I want to give a big shout out to the team that has been organizing and helping to make this happen. Jennifer Comedy Holmes, man, she has been getting it done. Gary and Daniel, who are not housed in Cypress, have been on site and have been helping out the team along with others. I know as soon as I start naming names, it's just too many folks, and you know who you are, and we thank you so much. We could not have been doing this without the support and leadership of Erin and her team as well. And packing is going. This image I want to share with you is probably the image that Erin and Felix and Jennifer, some of us had, that it would be these organized boxes. Everything just looks perfect and ready to go. And in reality, it's a little chaotic right now, trying to get out of a building that we have not been in for almost 5 months and did not anticipate that we would be needing to pack under these circumstances. So thank you to everybody. Our goal is to be out of Cypress with regards to our packing requirements by the end of this week. And I want to mention one more thing. If we could go to the next slide. I did want to take a moment to always come back and remind everybody that our Student Advocacy and Resource Center is 100% remote, fully operational. It's an integrated case management and counseling model. So students that are expressing, especially when classes began, I know the advisors right now and our enrollment coaches send students through referrals to the Advocacy Center all day. And we're hoping to see that even ramp up more when we come back to class. And our faculty help us to identify students that need additional assistance, whether it's counseling or case management, community resources, financial support. Please refer them to the Advocacy Center. We have team members that have come from other areas of student success that are now advocates in our center. They've been retrained to be able to come in and help support the work. We also have graduate interns in both psychology and social work that support. And we have Adriana and Joshua, our counselors, that are also a part of the team. Migdalia Garcia really has contributed to the leadership and the support, along with Lisa Black, our director. So I really want to appreciate the work that this team is doing. There is about $800,000 that remain in our CARES Act funding. We had $3.2 million to begin with, and we still have $800,000 that's available to students that were with us in spring 2020 that are continuing their enrollment with us into the fall. So if you can kind of keep your ears attuned to those students that are saying they were with us in spring and they're needing financial support, rent, food, childcare costs, et cetera, car payments, you name it. The team is ready to help get that money into those students' hands. There's also funding for non-CARES eligible students that is through other resources. So really, Lisa and the team would be saying refer. That's the best thing, because we can guarantee you that they're going to get support through that team. And that is all that I have for today. There's so much to cover. I appreciate the opportunity to share these few updates. All of you take care, and we'll look for some questions that might come a little later. And Daniel, pal, it's all yours, our Vice President for Academic Success.
Hello, good morning, NVC. It's good to be with almost 200 of you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. 2020 has turned out to be a year of unprecedented challenges. In fact, there are many times where I feel like that is my internal organ, as you see on the picture. And I know that some of you will empathize with that sentiment. So next slide. So just know that we have worked really hard to work on strengthening our process improvement for our remote and online conditions. This fall, the academic area will remain 100% online and remote, so it will look a lot the same as this last spring. We were in a position this last spring where we had to pivot and go online very, very quickly, and so there was a lot of lessons learned and challenges with that. So we're really working hard to improve process improvement. So we have accessibility to things like tutoring, library, open labs. We're working on schedule build, refinement, training, and a lot of other things that go into the work of a recovery plan. We will not have any travel, this coming fall. So that needs to be said sort of again, just like the spring, no travel and no in-person events for this coming fall semester. Just to reiterate a point that Dr. Baser made, that if you are not asked to be on campus this fall, and the vast majority of our folks are not being asked to be on campus this fall, you do not have to complete the work remote request. So just to say that again, that's only for if you're being asked because of the scope of your duties to go face-to-face, and you want to not to advocate for not doing that for whatever reason. That's the only time you'd use that form. So just want to make that point clear as well. Budgets, it's no secret that we've had some adverse budget conditions that are going to impact some of our strengthening of our recovering process. So I'd ask for your patience. And I know we looked at some softwares and stuff, and we're working really hard to use the finite dollars we have to synergize in specific areas to improve our online and remote conditions. But obviously we have some budget constraints. So I'd ask for your patience as we work our way through those challenges. So next slide. I wanted to mention specifically the enrollment and schedule, because as we look at the enrollment patterns, I know some enrollment questions in the chat, we see some changes in enrollment pattern behavior of students because the conditions have changed, right? And so it's going to create some unique challenges that we're trying to mitigate and navigate now by looking at enrollment numbers in specific classes. They're really high in other areas and really low in other areas. And so I wanted to emphasize this point, and that is our spring schedule is actually published in October. It's prepared and loaded in September. So we have a very quick turnaround to where we can analyze the enrollment pattern trends of the fall and then produce the spring schedule. So while we're 100% remote in the fall semester, we are anticipating to offer a select very few classes and start the increase of scope of face-to-face classes for the spring. As of right now, that's what we're anticipating. So that spring schedule is very important to keep on our mind. So that's one thing that we're working on. We want to make sure that we develop methodological processes that are applied to each phase that we're increasing face-to-face instruction. So we're trying to really think through what it would be like to apply this methodology for the spring semester, which we're anticipating a small increase of face-to-face, but even next year as we start increasing more and more face-to-face, can we apply the same process? So I just wanted to point that out, that we acknowledge there's a difference in enrollment pattern changes of students, and we're monitoring that actively and preparing for the spring schedule, which we cannot roll over. We can't roll over last year's schedule. It's a completely different ball game, so we need a lot of critical lens and eyes on review of enrollment pattern changes and what's happening in the fall to prepare the spring schedule. Next slide. So one of the things that we're really actually working on is trying to increase faculty and student development. What I mean by that is increased trainings. We have a lot of trainings that are still out there. And if Lisa can hit me with a link of the general remote services. So she's going to post a link in the chat, and that specific link, I would invite you to click on it and save as a favorite. It's like a go-to link that has different tabs for different stakeholders. So if you're a faculty, if you're a student, and it has a wealth of information of where to go for different training sessions. As mentioned, there's an infectious disease training that's required by HR, and we're behind in our completion of that. So if you've not completed that, you really need to complete the infectious disease training and Alamo talent from HR. Anticipate more trainings because we're developing a lot of stuff, and there's going to be a lot of stuff in queue. I also like to encourage you, if you're at the Keep Teaching website, and Lisa, if you could hit me with that, this is a resource that's a bit more district-wide, but has a lot of relevant stuff, and it's a little redundant with some of our NVC links, but it's also a great resource for dynamic trainings that you want to keep monitoring. There's also a remote toolkit that is also, and this is all in the presentation where Erin mentioned. I'm just kind of overkill mentioning again because these are great resources that are go-to. I want to encourage you to save them as a favorite and to and help navigate those a bit dynamically. Another thing that we're working on that I could use your help with is a lot of discipline-specific training. So we're working really hard to have this high-level training, but I acknowledge that the way different disciplines prepare their pedagogy in this new remote online environment is a challenge, and some have more challenges than others. So we can't possibly anticipate all the trainings and all the need to improve. So I would ask to create a dynamic feedback system to give us the information, give your chairs and the deans the information of what it is specifically that you need so that we can work on developing that. Because some of the trainings we develop are at a very high level, and we need to drill down to what you need specifically. And so we're working really hard to sort of to figure out where those needs are. I also want to highlight, and I know Erin mentioned this, but just to overkill, highlight this, that we have laptops and hotspots available for students, and she referenced that link on how to do that. We worked really hard to have a nice inventory for technology access so that we can try to create as much accessibility for students and whatnot. As we enter the fall semester, I would encourage you to look at your syllabi with great care, that you address anything like participation, that you're looking at that. If you have a grading element in that area that is appropriate for the remote conditions, that may not be the same as rolling over, and that you link to some of these resources in your syllabus or wherever, or that you just constantly have the students aware of these opportunities between Advocacy Center, the technology access, how to navigate remote conditions. It's a new ball game, and we need all hands on deck to get this information out to the right places. So, so at this time, I'm going to finish, and I'm available for questions if you can't get them in this round. Then know that my door is open anytime, and so you can let me know, and I'm happy to answer questions later on. But at this time, I want to transition to Melissa Moreau-Young, who is going to lead us in the next segment. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Let's see, we have about 10 minutes left for questions, and I've been lumping these questions together by themes. And Erin, there's a few for you. So the first one is, what is the protocol if we encounter someone who refuses to wear a mask or go through a health screening? And it's more for not faculty or students, but the public.
So the public, one of the things that is part of that access procedure that I talked about is anybody that is coming on campus should be approved ahead of time. So one of the things that we are communicating to anyone on campus is that, and this includes vendors, public, that this is a requirement. So if you're not able to meet this requirement, you are asked not to come to campus. There's also lots of signage that's going to be in place. And Garvin has done an excellent job of working with the individuals that are conducting our health screenings to provide guidance for them on how to ask somebody to leave. What are the different PPE options for them on campus?
Okay, the next one is, will students have access to the library, such as those that depend on textbooks? This is a service that is important for our low-income students who don't have access to this service, the library?
Yeah, I suppose that would come to me. So we're going to be, remote for the library, just like we were this last spring. If you have a specific area that you think is a deficit in terms of accessibility, then please funnel that to your chairs and deans, and let's take a closer look at specific examples. We're working really hard to transition as much as possible, but you can't get it right all the time. I know we've talked about specialty software and assisted devices and how we're going to navigate that as we reopen the campus. But since we're 100% remote, we are limited in what we can do in some of those areas. So if you have a specific example, then fill that up too, and let's take a closer look at that. But we're working really hard to replicate as much as we can online, but we know there are going to be gaps. And so if you can think of some specificity with that question, then fill it to us, and I promise we'll research that. That's probably the best answer I have at this time, unless somebody else has a better.
Norma had put a great comment in the chat about contacting the library with specific questions. They are here to assist, and they've been able to work through many of the difficulties on a one-on-one basis as well.
They're doing a phenomenal job, just outstanding. Amazing. In general, yes, of problem solving unprecedented challenges.
So the next question is, I know it may be too early to ask for spring, but for those of us in a situation with no childcare and caring for children and an elderly parent, how soon will we need to apply to request to work remotely for the spring semester?
So that will be as we develop the spring schedule. Your supervisor, one of the components of developing those schedules is developing the staffing schedule and the class schedule. So as those are developed, you'll be notified by your division, here's the schedule and here's our plan moving forward. And at that time, if you have the challenges, that's the time to fill out that remote request.
So again, just to be really super clear, unless you're being asked to come on campus, you don't need to fill out the form. So it's only for, because we had, when that form was first introduced, we had lots of people just go and fill out the form. And so it's only intended for if you're being asked to work on campus, and NVC specifically is mostly remote and online. So your supervisor should be the one to contact to see if that form is even applicable to you.
Well, students need to go to campus to be required to complete some type of training. And I think, Debbie, you were saying in the chat, maybe we need to do some type of virtual training.
Yeah, we do have, and we have others that are on the Zoom that could add additional information. We have the remote ready boot camp that was available to students as we closed out the spring. We are interested in continuing the remote ready boot camp into the fall. There's some different logistics that are involved in getting students enrolled in the course, but there is not a required training. So it's not anything that we can make students do before they come to campus, but we do want to see if the remote ready boot camp might be a way to help.
And that's one of the areas. So what we have going on now is a lot of subcommittee work of people assigned some different things to work on, and student preparedness is absolutely one of those. Like, can we, and this is all works in progress with no firm final answer there, but can we include it within SDEV and EDUC? Is that a possibility, and to what extent? And is it possible to include them into NSOs and things like that? So I do know that there are a lot of folks working on different ways to intersect with students, aside from a passive website. Can we actively engage them with this? We do have a lot of tools, but we're working on ways to improve that. So any ideas that you have, bring them forward, because we're writing the rule book as we go.
And for fall, students shouldn't be on campus unless they have an appointment with Student Success. That's
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. We're fortunate that
our drive-through bookstore.
We're fortunate that the teaching and learning is online, so it's keeping students at a distance. There'll be very minimal number of students that will be on campus the entire semester. We all go 100% remote as we move into Thanksgiving. None of us return after Thanksgiving face-to-face. So we do have an opportunity to have a little bit of a learning curve with our students that are preparing to move into the spring, because they'll be with us throughout the fall, so we'll have different ways to be able to communicate with them. And then the remote ready boot camps, the new student orientations, those things that happen before classes begin are ways that we help them prepare for the first day of classes in the spring.
Okay, it looks like we have less than 4 minutes. The next question, will non-MVC students be able to schedule appointments to use onboarding lab or testing office? Or is this only for MVC students? We know that students will visit any Alamo College thinking we are all the same?
The students will make appointments through their home college, not where they're taking classes, because that's where their enrollment coach and that's where their advisors are. If there's a need for a student to complete steps at a different institution, it would be the employees from one college to the other that would be making that happen. But by and large, the appointments will be for students that are Northwest Vista students.
If the primary campus of a student is not MVC, but they're asking for help, can they still use our advocacy center, the advocacy center?
There's an advocacy center remote at all 5 of the colleges. So same thing, we can have a referral come to our college. So whoever's talking to that student, we would ask that they get the referral to us. Then when the team is working with that student, they'll make sure that they're connected with their home college. Yeah, we definitely don't want the students running around. So I would encourage the referral to be done. And then let the team pick up the referral and work with the student.
Okay, we have about less than 2 minutes left. Someone was asking about commencement being canceled again in the fall. Will another virtual commencement be held? What do y'all say about that?
Let me try to address a little bit of that one. What we're working on right now, in fact, at Incident Command, we have a question out there. I know we've been looking at what we can do that would stay within the guidelines. We would not, right now, we still have one planned. We are looking at off-sites, not on campus. It would be a drive-through graduation, and we're looking at places like Fiesta, Texas, and some of those that already have all of the processes in place and all of those protocols, the parking lots, all of that already there. We have a question that has been posed to Incident Command. They're working on that right now. There has been some requests for some on-campus things, not on our site, but on other of the college campuses. Those are going to be denied. And what we're looking at on ours, if we have one, it will be on an off-site and it will be done as a drive-through graduation. But right now, we'd still love to have one in December.
Okay, we have less than a minute left. Do y'all want to keep taking questions, or do you want to just end it for now and we'll collect the questions and then answer them in La Revista?
Sure. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and move on. That last slide there. All right. I do want to thank everyone for attending. We will try to address all of the questions. One that was out there that I wanted to address real quickly, and it was a question on how enrollment was doing. Right now, we're at about 78.8% of our enrollment, about 3,900 down. About 100 date to date, we're about 122 students down date to date. That doesn't mean we can lighten up. We still have a long ways to go, about 4,000 students who enroll prior to the first day of classes. I do want to thank you. We'll continue this discussion at the next bragging breakfast in September. So if you have questions, make sure you get those in. We will try to address all of them in La Revista. Thank you for attending.